Everyone. My name is Lauren Longmire, and I am the Director of Regional Enhancement for the Knoxville Chamber. My script says to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, but I'm going to say thank you for braving all of the weather. And between me getting ready in the dark and Kaki driving all over Knoxville to find internet, we are here and we are so grateful that you all did the same because this is a very important topic and we're really excited to talk to you about it today. So Kaki Reynolds is the United Way of Greater Knoxville's Director of East Tennessee Collaborative. So she will explain a little bit more about what that means, but she's going to lead us in a conversation about the benefits cliff and how the East Tennessee Collaborative program helps families reach financial self-sufficiency, independence, and economic mobility. So for those who may not be familiar, the benefits cliff occurs when a family's increased income through promotion or a raise triggers an abrupt loss of public benefits that outweighs the increase in income, often substantially. Because the value of the company's increased income is less than the value of the lost benefits, the family is left in a worse financial situation. So for some, it may make more sense financially to turn down an increase in pay or promotion and position. We believe it is so important to raise awareness about that problem, the benefits cliff, and how employers can support their working families that are affected by it. Before we get started today, I want to say a quick thank you to our regional enhancement sponsors, PMG Benefits Higginbotham, and our talent ecosystem sponsors, Accenture, RIMEX, and Y12 Credit Union for making today's program possible. Okay, Kaki, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to share today. Again, it's been a chaotic morning, so we appreciate you guys all being here. And let me share my screen. See, share that. And okay, can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Awesome. So like Lauren said, we are going to share today with you guys a little bit about the benefits cliff, how we talk about this at the United Way using ALICE data, and then some solutions that we are piloting here in our community to help address this for individuals and what role you guys can play as our business community. So like Lauren shared, the benefits cliff occurs when a family's increased income triggers a loss of benefits that ends up outweighing the increase in income. So when somebody gets a raise at work and they're on public subsidy, oftentimes the increased income isn't a dollar for dollar match in what services or benefits they might be losing as a result. To start, we're going to try to look at a quick video that summarizes this experience. Do you guys have sound?
No.
You think of when
No
you think
sound.
of American dream. It means different things for different people. But for Leah, a 25-year-old single mother of two working a low-wage job at a theater concession stand, that dream is to become a nurse, an opportunity occupation in her hometown, offering a salary higher than the median wage. Becoming a nurse could also place Leah on a path with options for professional advancement and help her provide a better life for herself and her family. As Leah starts her journey, costs like educational fees and higher taxes on Leah's pay can actually cause a dip in her income. But over time, Leah's future looks brighter. After taxes, her lifetime earnings are higher. That's part of the American dream, right? Unfortunately, Leah's situation isn't this simple. Like many workers earning low wages, Leah receives public assistance to pay for food, medical care, childcare, and housing. As Leah's income grows, she'll lose access to those benefits. Often, this occurs before she makes enough money to cover her full expenses herself. An entire decade could pass before Leah begins to break even. And as a result, For most of her children's lives, Leia's standard of living will actually be lower. This forces Leia to choose between her children's best interests and her own brighter future. Financial barriers like these can be so daunting. Some people in Leia's situation will give up on their dreams or experience too many barriers to achieve them. This devastating combination of increased pay and the resulting loss of support is called the benefits cliff, and it's a significant obstacle for workers seeking a better life. And make no mistake about it, while Leia is depicted here as an animated character, her story is based on real life challenges faced by many Americans. As a taxpayer, Leia's situation also impacts you. If Leia could move from her current job to becoming a nurse, the combination of her increased tax contributions and a reduction in her taxpayer funded support could recover hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars over the course of her lifetime. Employers, educators, nonprofits, policymakers, and others could work together on solutions that provide opportunities and pathways, pairing people like Leia with businesses in need of skilled talent, while allowing Leia to work toward financial security for herself and her family. Informed by sound research and thoughtful policy, the right partners could create a win-win situation, empowering Americans like Leia to avoid the perils of the benefits cliff, saving taxpayers money, and increasing the odds Leia, her children, and the rest of us can make all of our American dreams come true.
So that's really just kind of a high level description of what this experience looks like. The important thing that we want to convey is that while logically has a really big impact on individuals, it also has a really high impact on employers and on the government as a whole. In a survey conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, nearly 40% of individuals said that they had declined or delayed taking a job or promotion out of fear or loss of benefits. They also surveyed 1,000 businesses in Florida, and 1 in 3 reported that employees or candidates declined job offers, advancements, or increased hours out of fear of the loss of benefits. And I think as business owners or employers, you can probably assume that these numbers are underreported because people might not even share that as a reason for why they wouldn't pick up additional hours or decline certain advancements. And as the video highlights, there's a large tax contribution that is impacted by the benefits cliff. So for a person to transition from a minimum wage job, say, for example, a cashier, specifically in Knox County, they might be receiving public benefits. They're not necessarily contributing high levels of taxes to the government. If they were to transition to an LPN, this could result in nearly $500,000 of taxes paid by that individual over their lifetime. And this chart shows that growth kind of in the short term, in a mid-range between 1 and 10 years, and then again over the lifetime of that earner. So Alice is kind of the way that we talk about this at the United Way. The United Way of Northern New Jersey is kind of the leader in this data compilation. Alice families are those that are asset limited, income constrained, but employed. There are those that are earning above the federal poverty level, but they're not yet earning enough to earn the basics and afford the basics of their home. So to dig into this a little bit deeper, we're going to talk through the Alice threshold, which is the amount that a family actually needs to be earning to survive, and how that vastly differs from the federal poverty level across the country. The federal poverty level is what helps determine what benefits people are eligible for. So depending on a family's income, they may be eligible to receive public subsidies to offset the cost of food, housing, or other needs like childcare, transportation, etc. But being above the federal poverty level does not necessarily mean that an individual has enough to meet their family's basic needs. And the gap between those two amounts, the federal poverty level and the Alice threshold, is our Alice population. Those are the people that we're really going to be talking about today. So as we talk about the federal poverty level, it's important to understand kind of what that means and how it's constructed. So as I mentioned, this is the amount that a family might make that makes them eligible for various government assistance. It's based solely on the number of people in a household and is the same for every location across the country. So for example, a family of 4 living in Manhattan and a family of 4 living in Knoxville would be eligible to receive the same public benefits based on their income. The other limitation that the federal poverty level presents is that it's determined just by the number of people in the household rather than who actually makes up that household. So for example, the federal poverty level for a family of 2 is the same whether that family consists of a single parent with an infant or a single parent with a 17-year-old. The federal poverty level increases annually based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index, which really doesn't account for real life cost increases or cost of living differences across the United States. And one big problem is that the federal poverty level and the percentage of people that are below that level is really the primary tool for policymakers and stakeholders to gauge financial hardship in their communities, but it's not actually reflective of people that are struggling across the country and across our area specifically. So think of the Alice household budget as a more accurate representation of what it takes for a family not to be in poverty and to be sustaining their family's basic needs without the support of government or community assistance. Some great things about this research and kind of the way that we look at the Alice data and the Alice population is that it is specific to different kinds of household makeups. So it really looks at how old the children in the home are, how old the wage earners might be in the home, and has a specific calculator for each kind of unique family makeup. Additionally, it's specific down to zip code. So we have data that reflects what might the Alice threshold look like in Knox County versus Union County or Anderson County or our friends in Davidson County. Or as I used the example before, the Alice threshold in Manhattan is going to be vastly different than the Alice threshold for the people that live here. Something to keep in mind about this data is that it is on a 2-year delay. And so the 2022 data has just come out internally for United Way partners. So that's the information that we'll be sharing today. It will be available publicly in the next week and a half. And so I'll share all of those reports and links with Lauren once we get them, and we'll be able to share that with all of you guys as well. So this grid kind of shows the difference between the increase in the federal poverty level in navy versus the increase in the Alice threshold in yellow between 2021 to 2022. Over the last several years, cost of living expenses have far surpassed wage increases and the federal poverty level increases. And we know this anecdotally when we hear about housing costs that have blown up or the cost of food. But the federal poverty level hasn't really matched that level of inflation. Historically, the federal poverty level has raised about 3% annually. And so we did see a little bit of an increase in that from 21 to 22. But you can see, again, the vast difference between the actual survival budget, the Alice threshold, and the federal poverty level. So one would think, logically, that as an individual gets increased earnings, this line on the bottom, that their family net financial resources will have, again, a 1-to-1 ratio. As you make more, you have more. Unfortunately, for families that are experiencing the benefits cliff, this is really the reality of the situation. And here we see the benefits cliff playing out as a family's income increases. This graph is specifically based on a family of 4, a 2-parent household that lives in Knox County. They have a 2-year-old and they have a 7-year-old. As the family's net resources on the left, and then you have the family net resources is the income plus the public assistance minus taxes and minus expenses. So this is what it feels like they're making, and this is what they're actually making over time. Here you can see that this family experiences the benefits cliff 3 times. 3 separate times they have an increase in earnings, but a decrease in what it feels like they're taking home. With this visual, it makes sense why someone might refuse work hours or refuse a $1 pay increase, because families are constantly navigating and weighing their options. So something that should feel like a celebration, like a promotion at work, leaves a family really with an unknown uncertainty in what their net financial resources are going to look like. What you can also see through this grid is that first of all, by the time they're actually breaking even and have a consistent income and increase in net financial resources, they're making over $60,000 a year. But multiple times throughout this situation, it feels the same. So when this family is making $20,000 a year and when they're making $60,000, it still feels the same. And so this situation really promotes families to stick with what they know and not accept increases in pay, because they don't necessarily know what that's going to do for their family situation. So as we dig into this specifically in Knox County, in 2020, sorry, that should say 2022. This is kind of a point in time data capture. So Knox County had a population of kind of inching up on 500,000 people across over 200,000 households. The median income is nearly 70,000. And our labor force participation rate is a little bit higher than the state average at 64.7%. Between 2021 and 2022, the federal poverty rate in Knox County stayed consistent at 13%. But Alice households increased from 26% to 27%, leaving 40% of Knox County households unable to meet their family's basic needs and afford the cost of basics. The other interesting thing that Alice data shows us is that Alice households exist across all ages, genders, races, and ethnicities, but many groups are disproportionately represented among families below the Alice threshold and the federal poverty level. So here you can see that there's a larger percentage of Black families, nearly 65%, that are below the Alice threshold. African American families in Knox County also have the highest rate of those below the federal poverty level in that dark blue. And more than 50% of Knox County's Hispanic, American Indian, Alaskan Natives, and multiracial households are below the Alice threshold. The other interesting thing is that Alice households vary by household makeup. So some of these numbers vary drastically from our last data release in 2021. So in 2021, single-led households had nearly the same percentage of families below the Alice threshold, whether they were led by a female or they were led by a male. The most recent data shows that 82% of female-led households and 59% of male-led households are below the Alice threshold, which really highlights the gender wage gap for Alice families in our community. A key contributor to the number of Alice households in Tennessee is the fundamental mismatch between the cost of living and what jobs actually pay. Here you can see the 20 most common occupations in Tennessee. 76% of people in these professions make less than $20 an hour. And while many professions saw increased wages between and after COVID, wage gains really haven't translated uniformly across all jobs and sectors and still leave many families and households and individuals below the Alice threshold. And although many wage earners did see increases, due to a stagnation in wage increases over the past several decades, we just have had a difficult time closing that gap. This digs into this a little bit farther in looking at a few examples of these occupations in Tennessee. So personal care aides experienced a 22% median wage increase between 2021 and 2022. So they earned nearly a quarter more in 2022 than they did in 2021. However, it still left 64% of personal care aides below the ALICE threshold. For our elementary and middle school teachers, of the 20 most common occupations, they were the only one that did not see a consistent wage increase between 2021 and 2022. And so I'd like you to think about that for just a minute. Our elementary and middle school teachers, at one of the most challenging times in our education system during COVID, saw no wage increases, and still 17% of those individuals fell below the ALICE threshold. And then lastly, driver sales workers and truck drivers, they saw a pretty significant increase in wages, but still at $19 an hour, still 28% of those folks are below the ALICE threshold. Another great tool that ALICE offers us is kind of laying out what these household survival budgets look like dollar for dollar. And so again, in this situation, we're looking at a single parent with 2 children. They have an infant who is less than 2 and a 5-year-old. You can see what the average housing cost would be, what would utilities be, what are they paying for childcare. So for this family, a single mom with 2 small children, to really have enough to make ends meet, they would need to be making nearly over $87,000. The federal poverty level is $27,750 for this family makeup. The hourly wage for that individual is nearly $44 an hour, and the minimum wage in Tennessee is $7.25. So this is kind of like highlighting the enormous difference between what it takes to actually live and thrive and survive in our community and where people are losing benefits and where that gap really exists for our ALICE families. And so that's pretty dismal. What do we do with it? What role can you play? What role is the United Way playing in supporting these families? So supporting the ALICE population is an integral part of the work we do here at the United Way. Ensuring equity and access to education, food, and targeting economic mobility among this population is really at the support of the work that we're doing in our community. From a systems perspective, we're working diligently to help our community, our businesses, individuals understand this information so that they can also take it and adapt it and find ways to play a part in the solution. The benefits of sufficient income are really greater than just an impact for individuals and families. There's a huge community impact to be considered as well. For education, if we had access to quality, affordable childcare, quality education for all from kindergarten through 12th grade, there would be decreased racial gaps and income disparities, which results in a high return on investment, especially for early education initiatives. With the work that we're doing in food, with access, decreased food insecurity across our community improves health outcomes, lowering healthcare costs, improving workplace productivity, and resulting in less public spend on emergency food services. And then with economic mobility, the more people are making, the more that they're able to contribute both to the economy and to taxes, and there's less spend on public programming. So the East Tennessee Collaborative, of which I'm the director, is the United Way's strategy on impacting economic mobility in our community. We're funded by the Department of Human Services. The TANF Opportunity Act was established in June of 2021 to help develop ways to use some of $750 million of TANF dollars that were held in reserve. So TANF stands for Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. These dollars come down to the state of Tennessee from the federal government on an annual basis. Tennessee was holding a lot of that money in reserves should there be a rainy day. During COVID, I think it became abundantly clear that it was pouring, and these families needed access to these dollars in order to be successful. We engaged in kind of a planning grant in spring and fall of 2022, and are one of 7 pilot grantees across the state of Tennessee that is working to really reimagine what the social safety net can look like in our state. We have $25 million to spend initially over 3 years. We just are waiting on the governor to sign our extension, but we anticipate being able to carry our programming through 2026 and are doing this really with a collaborative approach. As a TANF and TOPI grantee, our goal is to reduce poverty, increase economic opportunity pathways, and enhance social supports in a relational and comprehensive approach. We've adopted a model out of Boston called Economic Mobility Pathways to do this work, and are really working with our local nonprofits to partner with families in helping them achieve self-sufficiency. Currently, we have 9 partner organizations. So while the United Way is the backbone organization and that $25 million flows through us, over 22 million of it is going right back out to our community. We have 9 partner organizations that are doing this work, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but half of our grant is allocated to go directly to families to support them on their journey. So kind of our model really looks at the fact that if we pair relationship with money and financial support, that families are able to make tremendous progress. So Empath, the model that we've adopted, really focuses on trauma and the idea that living in poverty and the stress, oppression, and the experience that people have in that situation is a chronic trauma and has a direct impact on one's ability to engage in executive functioning skills and goal setting. So for example, if you don't know how you're going to pay your rent or how you're going to feed your family, it's really impossible to think about a 5-year plan, or how are you going to cross over the benefits cliff and earn enough to be sufficient without government assistance. So the Empath model really digs into this. It pairs families with what we're calling a mobility mentor. And the mentor is really that family's partner on this journey. As struggles come up, they have somebody to problem solve with. And through this safe relationship, mentors are giving families the opportunity to dream and to think, and then mentors are able to help them set small, measurable, short-term goals that accumulate to them achieving self-sufficiency. Empath's theory of change really is a holistic and comprehensive approach. It breaks down the silos of the experience of living in poverty and helps families set and achieve goals in 5 essential areas: family stability, well-being, education, financial management, and employment and career management. And some of the things that we feel like really make this work different are the values that we really weave into all of the work that we're doing. So Empath values the individual, the innate human value and capacity of those that we're serving. We have an unconditional positive regard. So historically, the system might approach people with a little bit of a sense of judgment. Families that are receiving public subsidy are often met with stigmas and biases. So we really try to approach this with that far, far in the past. While we want to understand a family's story, where they've come from doesn't dictate where they're able to go and what they're able to accomplish. And with that, we really recognize that everybody has the potential for growth. And with some assistance and guidance and support, everybody has the capacity to achieve the goals and the dreams that they set out for themselves. As I noted, in addition to the relationship, we really feel like it's important for families to have access to these resources that they haven't had most of the time for the duration of their lives. So $12.5 million is allocated towards specific aid. And this kind of comes in multiple buckets. So the first is through supportive services. Our mentors are able to pay third-party providers for supportive services that can help families really move up towards economic mobility. So for example, if a participant is interested in getting a certification in cosmetology, we're able to pay for those things. If a participant is working, we can help with childcare. We had a mom that we were working with early on who just couldn't afford the cost of full-time childcare. And so she was only working part-time because her mom could only help her with helping with her baby for a couple of hours a month. Because she was working, we were able to pay for full-time childcare. She was able to pick up more hours at work and was therefore able to work full-time. Additionally, our families have access to goal action payments. So the empath model, like I mentioned, really sits with families in establishing SMART goals. And as they accomplish those goals, they're able to receive smaller payments between $25 and $100 as they achieve these SMART goals that are set forth with their mentor. We're able to use specific aid for transitional benefits support. So that's really to help buffer the experience of that benefits cliff. As participants are finding success, they're getting wage increases, they're getting promotions, they're finding themselves in higher paying careers, they're losing benefits, and that's something that we want to celebrate and have them not be fearful of. And so transitional benefits allow us the opportunity, as some of those subsidies are lost, to assist them for a couple more months while the mentor works with them to adjust their budget and acclimate to this change in circumstances. And then lastly, we understand that life happens. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes something as simple as a flat tire sends everything sideways. So if we have a single parent, they get up to go to work, they have a flat tire, they can't get to their job, they lose that day's wages, they can't pay for food, they might not be able to pay for rent, and all of a sudden they're facing eviction. And while that sounds like a very dramatic experience, it's really the situation that these families exist within. And so our emergency support services are able to really help when those situations come up so that families don't lose the momentum when something happens that was unplanned for. All the while, our mentors are also helping our families establish savings and plan for those emergencies on their own and using those opportunities as learning moments and skill building so that they can really handle these things independently in the future. So we began serving families last February. As of yesterday, we had 440 families enrolled and have impacted the lives of nearly 15 East Tennesseans across 10 counties. We're really excited about some of our early results. We've experienced a 90% retention rate for families and services. And I think that is really important to highlight because the experiences our families are having to have another meeting with somebody else is a lot. And so this is something that our families are really valuing and they're prioritizing and they're sticking with it. Regarding our demographics, it really mirrors what we're seeing in our ALICE data. So 86% of our families are single parent households. 97% of them identify as female. One of the things that we are really interested by is the fact that we are reaching a historically underserved population. So only a third of Families First or TANF recipients in Knox County are African American, but 60% of our ETC participants identify as Black. And we really attribute that to our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the ability that our partners are able to have trusted relationships with the populations that they're serving. So by having a diverse group of partners, we're able to reach a more diverse group of ETC participants, which we're really, really happy about. So some early successes. On the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see kind of some statistics about the families that we serve at the start of services. So 60% of our participants are either not permanently housed or they're receiving a housing subsidy at the start of services. 29% report that they can rarely or never rely on networks or guidance for support. I think that really highlights the isolating experience that families in poverty and our ALICE families have. They don't have anybody to call when they wake up that day and they have a flat tire. They don't have anybody to call if school gets closed and they need somebody to watch their kids so they can go to work. These families are living on an island, paycheck to paycheck, with very little support and social capital in their lives. 63% are behind on payments or not making payments on debt. And 77% of families have less than $100 in savings when they start services. This, I think, also really highlights predatory lending in our community. It's a huge problem. As we've dug into this with some of our families, we see this playing out all day, every day. Families are put in impossible situations where they don't have what they need. And so they go take out a high interest payday loan and are completely upside down, never able to repay those things, continuing to accrue significant interest over time. 49% of our families have a high school degree or less. So after 12 months with a mentor, again, we're early in this. We just started serving families 15 months ago. But 25% of families have reduced their housing subsidy or have no housing subsidy whatsoever after 12 months of time working with a mentor. 60% report being more connected to networks and social supports. We attribute a lot of that to the relationship that they're establishing with their mentor, but also with the mentor's ability to help connect families with other families, with social networks and social capital, so that they feel like they have people that they can reach out to and ask for help when hard times fall upon them. 54% have less debt than when they started, and 38% have experienced an increase in savings. 17% have earned an educational certificate, which we expect to see significant increases over the next few months. A lot of those certification programs take a little bit, and we think that we'll see that number really jump up here soon. And then 37% have increased their income. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on and want to make sure that we're consistently doing is getting feedback from our participants. We have qualitative feedback that we are getting from them in surveys, quantitative data that is helping guide future decision-making and helping us tell the story of what is this experience and what are people facing? Where are the gaps in services and support that our ALICE families are facing on a daily basis? These are just a couple of quotes from some of our families. I think the first one really kind of highlights the work that we're trying to do. This individual said, "This program allows me to change my life at my pace and feels judgment-free." And I think if you were to ask participants about their history and their experience with state-funded programs, which we are, that would not be what they would say has been their experience. Participants in ETC are really in the driver's seat. We're moving at their pace. We're responding to their needs, and we're here to support them rather than kind of a top-down hierarchical approach to conventional case management. It's a partnership, and I think families are really feeling that, and it's helping them really feel accomplished and like they can do things they never thought that they could do before. So how can you support ALICE? For starters, hire ALICE. We ETC participants are ready for work. We're full of candidates that are receiving wraparound services to support them on their employment and career journey. So participants who are working are able to access support around childcare and transportation. We are there to support them on keeping their job and thriving in doing so. So if you have participants or employees within your organization that you think would be a good fit, please reach out to us. If you have openings for people that you might think we might be serving, reach out to us. This is just kind of a base group of individuals that we have. Some of their specialties, our participants have various degrees and certifications. We have several people with bachelor's degrees. And here you can see what their sustainable wage would be, what they would need to make to cross over the benefits cliff and to be able to meet their family's basic needs and to really thrive in our community. As you can see, these numbers vary greatly. And so we understand that this might not be where your organization is able to start, but maybe you have career ladders where somebody is an entry level and they're making $18 per hour. But if they could work with you for time and access additional support, they could make more quickly. If you have opportunities like that in your company or organization, please let us know, because we want to share that with our mentors and get the word out to our participants. The other thing that we are really excited to share about is a new Alice at Work initiative. This really helps you become an Alice-friendly employer. We've got our first pilot cohort starting this July, but anticipate this to be a part of the work that we do here at the United Way. So if you're interested in getting involved, please reach out. This is a 6-module program cohort. You would be in it with other companies. Your organization would receive a unique data report that highlights what Alice looks like at your company. So how many Alice employees do you have? What does Alice look like? What do their demographics look like across your organization? That data report is totally private. It's not anything that we ever see, but it really helps you understand, what does this workforce look like for you? And then based on that knowledge, goes through modules around benefits and compensation, scheduling and flexibility, professional development, work support and resources, and financial wellness. So by the end of the cohort, your organization, your business would be able to develop an action plan on how to become more Alice friendly. So what might be some low or no cost interventions that you guys could put in place that would vastly improve the work experience for your Alice population. And so we're super, super excited about this. Our friends at the United Way of Northern New Jersey are spearheading this, and we are really just over the moon about getting this out. So again, our first cohort starts in July. We're looking for commitments through the month of May. If you are interested, please, please, please reach out. The other thing that you can do is just get involved at the United Way. So here's a QR code. This is just going to take you to our general landing page. We have different systems work. We have volunteer opportunities. There is literally a role for everybody to play in supporting Alice. And we would love the opportunity to help you figure out what that looks like for you, for your organization, for your groups, or anything that you're a part of in Knox County. Ooh, all right. I think I'm finished. Any questions?
Kaki, excuse me, thank you so much. Everyone, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will be watching that. While you type your questions in, Kaki, what is one thing you want employers to walk away from today's program with?
Yeah, I think that just a better understanding as an employer that we don't necessarily know what people are going through, what they're bringing to the table when they come to work. And as an organization, as an employer, it might not be your job to know those things. However, having a different context and a different lens to understand the experience, I think really helps employers better meet their employees' needs, and really will have an impact on your retention long term.
Thank you. So we have a couple questions actually. So the first, how many of the Alice families have served in the military? Do you ask for veteran status?
So I would imagine that is on the Alice data. I can look that up and get that back out to you. We do in the East Tennessee Collaborative collect that data. We don't have a ton of veterans, but we do have unique Alice specific veteran data that I can get back out to you guys.
Thank you. Well, to that point then, is there a way that individuals can follow the progress of ETC and possibly look up some of that extra information?
Yeah, so we have our annual report on our website, and on our landing page at the United Way under economic mobility, you'll see some information about the East Tennessee Collaborative. With the Alice specific data, as the data release comes out later this month with some specific Tennessee and Knox County and surrounding county information, I'll also get that back out to you guys. If you're interested in learning more, having a similar presentation, we'd be happy to provide that to anybody that's interested.
Thank you. Our next question, how do people get into the ETC program? So talk a little bit about the, I know you already did, but the mobility mentors, where they are, how they can get connected.
Yeah, so we really have kind of a no wrong door approach. On our United Way economic mobility website, there is an interest form that people can complete. Those referrals come to us, and then we send them out to our partners. You can also approach any of our partners, which I am going to try to do this off memory, which is a mistake with not enough coffee this morning. YMCA, YWCA, Knoxville Area Urban League, Centro, Boys and Girls Club, the United Way of Anderson County, Girls Inc., Good Neighbors, and Catholic Charities. So win. I will say for eligibility purposes, these are family dollars, so participants must have custody of minor children in their home. They can be relative caregivers, but they do have to have minor children in their home, and they need to be low or very low income. So for our purposes, that would be eligible to receive or currently receiving some kind of public subsidy.
Okay, one last question. I know joining the Alice at Work cohort would assist with this, but do you have a recommendation on how to effectively communicate with someone to see if they are having an issue with the benefits cliff, or making sure their staff knows that they are open and receptive to those conversations?
Yeah, you know what? We've had this conversation with a lot of HR professionals. I think it gets a little dicey as employees are coming and saying, you know, I can't make it to work because I don't have transportation, or, you know, I'm living in my car, I don't know what to do. Obviously, each organization and each business is different in how they're able to manage those things through HR. I would recommend pointing people to 211. So if they have needs, that is a great place to start in accessing resources. Additionally, Benefits Kitchen is kind of a simple resource I can send this information out to, but basically individuals can text a number and they answer a couple of questions, and then they're able to get a text back on all of the public subsidies that they might be eligible for. And so those are just two simple resources that HR professionals can help connect their employees with, so that they're not put in a position that is a little bit difficult in, you know, managing some of those things.
I appreciate that advice. Okay, it looks like we've answered all of our questions. So, Kaki, again, thank you so much for taking time today to lead our discussion. If you are an employer who is interested in supporting the East Tennessee Collaborative, you're interested in learning more, you're interested in maybe connecting with some of the individuals going through the program that are now eligible and ready to get into the workforce, please let Kaki and her team know. We will send a follow-up email to you all. We will get with Kaki. We will make sure everything we discussed today is included in that email. And we just got a question, so I want to say that this has been recorded. And we will have that posted on our website. If you haven't seen our new workforce development website, it is hireupknox.com, hire, H-I-R-E, upknox.com. It is a resource page for everything workforce, for individuals, for employers, and so on. We will post this to that website along with other resources. Kaki and her team will also have it. And if it's ready, we will include it in our follow-up email. Before we jump off, though, I want to thank again our regional enhancement sponsor, PMG Benefits Higginbotham, and our talent ecosystem sponsors, Accenture, REMX, and Y12 Credit Union. And don't forget